Hi there, Todd with Tribble Painting. What's all the buzz about? Today we're going to talk about carpenter bees. What are they and why do they affect your home? Why should you care? Carpenter bees are a solitary insect, unlike a bumblebee, which they often are confused with. Carpenter bees do not live in a hive, so they live in your house essentially. And you may not know this, but carpenter bees will drill a hole. Looks like a perfect hole. Sometimes you'll wonder if someone has drilled a hole because it looks so perfect in your house. They generally drill perpendicular to the grain. Usually it would be on the end of a board, or in this case, this board, they drilled behind the board. This was the fascia board that would have been on the house like this. And the carpenter bees drilled from the back side, and they drill only to lay their larvae. So they lay their eggs, which their larvae will hatch from. So a carpenter bee can drill over up to 6 feet. That's a lot of drilling. So they're boring into the wood and they're laying their larvae. And we'll show a picture of a gallery, that's what they're called, where they've laid a number of eggs and they seal each one off from the next with a combination of wood and saliva. And then in that gallery with that egg, they'll leave a food ball so that when the larva hatches, it has something to eat. Now, the unfortunate part about carpenter bees is essentially carpenter bees and woodpeckers go hand in hand. If the carpenter bees only came to your house, bore over, laid some eggs, and those hatched and went out into the world, and then next year someone else came in and laid more eggs, there'd be no issue. The issue really is that woodpeckers are listening for larvae. They come to the house and they listen for the larvae moving, and that's when they start attacking the wood to get to the larvae. That's what these large holes are. So we have the small hole of the carpenter bee that is drilled into the house, but then once the woodpeckers find it, they're going to do some substantial damage. Now, what do you do if you have these? How do you know if you have these? Carpenter bees are generally very active outside your house. They'll look like a bumblebee, except they are a little different. They don't have yellow like a bumblebee does. And on the bumblebee, the yellow part of their abdomen is hairy. The carpenter bee is all black and shiny on its abdomen. They don't sting, but they do, the male carpenter bee is aggressive. If you're up on a ladder on your house near where they have laid their eggs, he is going to try to scare you off by coming really close to your head. But he's not going to bite you. So a couple ways you can know if you have carpenter bees. One, lots of activity around your house of these bees. If you're up on a ladder, they're going to come close to you. If you see holes similar to this drilled somewhere on your house, you probably have carpenter bees. Obviously, if you see this type of damage from woodpeckers, you might have carpenter bees. Also, carpenter bees, there's carpenter bee excrement. Outside of a hole, usually on your house, there'd be some yellow staining, and that's carpenter bee excrement. So what do you do if you have them? Well, there's a couple things. Lots of times, and I've had carpenter bees on my house, and they're not down at ground level, these are up high, so you need a ladder. If you have a ladder, you can get up there, but most people choose to use an exterminator. An exterminator will dust the hole. They'll put some poison in the hole. When the carpenter bee goes in, that gets on them, and they eventually die. Another thing that we recommend to our clients, even in conjunction with an exterminator, is to get a carpenter bee trap. You can find these online and order them, and they attach to your house. They look like a little birdhouse, and essentially they're holes, because carpenter bees are opportunists. As you can imagine, it takes a lot of energy to drill these holes. So this fake birdhouse, if you will, has holes that the carpenter bee will go in to inspect. And the way the carpenter bee would always exit from its hole is by the light source. Well, in this trap, the largest light source is generally down into a jar. Once they're in there, they're trapped and can't find their way out. So we usually recommend that people work in conjunction with an exterminator and hang some carpenter bee traps on their house. All right, so thought we'd bring you out to an on-site example of what carpenter bees may look like if you have them at your home. So this is a condominium project we're working on with wood trim, wood siding. These holes here that I'm showing you, those are made by a woodpecker, not the carpenter bee. So the carpenter bee entered through this hole on the back side of the fascia. It bore over and laid its larva, and then the woodpecker came along, heard the larva, and started to destroy the fascia. So if you have stuff like this on your house, this could be a good indication that you too might have carpenter bees. So thanks again for watching. Hope you found this helpful on carpenter bees. So please hit subscribe and like. It helps other people find our videos.